America and liberty must be prepared to defend the United States Constitution at all costs. Those who love America and liberty must reject servitude and chains. Those who love America and liberty must reject socialism. We will not kneel to a corrupt government set on enslaving us. Those who choose America and liberty are patriotic countrymen. The mob, the traitors, the Nazis, the un-Americans, the astroturfs, the radical extremists, the racists, and are all part of the Obama administration. Adams was extremely poor, but he could not be tempted by the British gold, nor by honors or profits or gifts dangled before him by the British crown. Such patriotism has not been common in the world, but in America, in our beloved country, in this great nation, it is to be found in huge abundance, especially during patriotic struggles. During our founders' days, our military was weak, but the moral courage of her statesmen, the moral fiber of patriotism trumped out wealth and status and comfort every single time. They preferred death over a life shackled with oppressive chains. Give me liberty or give me death, described the patriotic sentiments of those early patriots. Americans are grateful for their legacy because once again in our great nation's history, the flames of patriotism are being stoked by a corrupt, socialistic, communist, lying regime. But what these socialist traitors fail to see is that their policies are fanning the flames of anger all across this country, energizing patriotic Americans like us to speak up. The courage and the patriotism that is part of our heritage, that is the soul and the heart of all patriotic Americans, will not disappear in our lifetime, because we cannot not allow these radical liberals to dismantle our Constitution. Will you answer? We all know that this administration is inflated with arrogance and conceit. They are forcing government-run health care on its citizens when the majority reject it. They want cap and trade, are forcing immoral legislation because they decided that perverts are entitled to have same rights as the rest of society has. They are chipping away at the traditional... We're going to do a little role-playing. It's going to be a little role-playing here. Our great nation, in its birth, went through very turbulent times to become a sovereign nation. Various courageous and God-fearing men and women during crucial moments in time fought for liberty and freedom that you and I enjoy today. Many lost their lives, their families, and their property in the struggle for independence. You are about to witness one such moment in our history that was the catalyst for the American Revolution. It is now March 23rd, 1775, and the place is St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia. Patrick Henry is one of the delegates to his secretive General Assembly meeting. This assembly was called to discuss and to vote on various important resolutions. The most serious resolution was the approval of a Virginia militia to defend the state against increasing British domination. Do we stand together and fight for liberty and freedom? Do we submit to the King of England's unbridled power, to the whims of the British governors, and to oppressive taxation? more and more British troops have landed on American soil, and colonial families are forced to house and feed British troops from their own provisions. The British were exerting more and more tyranny against the colonies and using military force. Religious freedom was being suppressed. Patrick Henry had recently witnessed a man being flogged so bad that he saw parts of his ribs through the torn flesh. When inquiring about what this man had done to deserve such brutal punishment, he was horrified to learn that this poor man, a minister, was being punished because he refused to get a license. The minister died 3 days later. Patrick Henry knew that drastic measures had to be taken. Their situation looked hopeless. The colonies did not have any formal army. One by one, the delegates that spoke advised not to resist and to give in to the British. It was now Patrick Henry's turn to speak. Mr. Henry, you have the floor.
No man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as the abilities of the very worthy gentlemen who have just addressed the House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore I hope it will not be thought disrespectful to those gentlemen if, entertaining as I do opinions of a character very opposite of theirs, I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The question before the House is one of awful moment to this country, and for my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery. Yeah. And in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be the freedom of the debate. It is only in this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and to fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time for fear of giving offense, I shall consider myself as guilty of treason towards my country and of an act of disloyalty towards the majesty of heaven, whom I revere above all earthly kings. Mr. President, it is natural for man to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed